Hello, welcome back. We will continue to talk about object-oriented programming today. We have talked class and object in last video. We will talk about another two important concepts in object-oriented programming in this video. The first one is inheritance, which means class can have their own children. Here we have two children of person class, student class, and AI engineer class. The children of the person class will inherit the attributes such as name, age, and sex, as well as the behaviors like eat, work, and sleep. In addition, children class can have their own attributes. We call it property sometimes, but they mean same thing, as well as a method. Here, student class have its own attributes, student ID, and study method. And we have AI engineer class has its own attribute, employee ID, and coding method. Second, let's discuss about polymorphism, which means parents class can be shown as different form during runtime, which means you don't know we are using student class or AI engineer class until we call their specific method. All we know about the object is a person type until we call the specific methods. Now let's jump into the code and see how inheritance and polymorphism is work. First, let me open my notebook. I will use same notebook that we created in last video. Here I'm going to create another cell to split the content. No, not here. Add and move to top. I will say class and object. Choose markdown cell. Now this one we're going to say to inheritance and polymorphism. Also choose markdown. Run it. Now let's define another two children class and inheritant from the person class. First, let's define another class called student. Class student and inheritant from person class. The simplest way is that define its initial function and say self, and have its own student ID attribute. Say self student ID. We give it a none as a default value. And the student class also have a, let's say, a study method. Define study self. And we can just print what we are doing here, or say self name concatenates with say is study. Okay, now let's run this class. Now we can new instance of student class. And this object will have attributes from student class itself and also its parent, which means student ID and as well as the other attributes such as name, age, sex, etc. Now let's see how it's working. We will say is student and say student, and maybe we can give it a full name. This is the object, this is a class. Now we can initial the values. Says we can say name is Rose and student age is 23, sex is woman or a girl. It should be a 3. Now we have created an instance object of the student. Let's try to use it. Student name. Let's just print it out. Say print. Now we got the correct result, and we can also use some method from itself, like study, as well as some methods from its parents. Let's try to use it. Now let's try to use it as method from itself first, study. Now it's correct. As you can see over here, we can also use some method from its parents, like let's say it. As you can see, we are not actually defining a method inside of the student class, but student's parents person class has a method, so we can still use it. And of course, we can use other methods such as sleep. See its work. We can also define a children class, require all the values from the initial function as well, just like in the parents class as we define over here. Now let's see how we can do that. Maybe I just copy from it. Here we're going to say name, age, sex. But here in this case, we need to call the initial function from the parents. Say initial function and self and name, age, and sex, which means when we receive value from the initial function from students, for example names over here, and then we will pass to the initial function of the parents function over here, so that it can be passed attributed in the parents class, name, age, sex, etc. Now let's run this cell, and we can new another student object. In this situation, we say student 2. Of course, we cannot run in this way directly. As you can see, it's have an error message over here. So we have to run in this way. Say name is Rose, age is 23, and woman. Now we got the object. And of course, we can use all those methods and its attributes as well, just like in the previous one. Let's try to use it. You can say, and we can also try to call as a sleep. See, it's work. That's all about the inheritance. Now let's try to define another children class and see how the polymorphism is work. We will say class AI engineer, and also inheriting from person, and define initial function we say self, and we have employee ID. We'll give it a none as a default value, and I have a method called coding. Say self, and we are just print as we did before. This is coding, and here's the name. Okay. Now let's try to create an object of AI engineer. Here we're going to say AI is equal to AI engineer, and AI name is equal to Jack. AI age is equal to 29. AI 6, the man. Okay. And of course, we can call the function from the parents as well, because AI engineer is inherited from the person class. Let's try to just call one of them, AI dot work. See, it's work. Now let's rewrite a method in the children class a little bit. Here we're going to revise the work. You can overwrite the method from the parents. Here we can say the work. Maybe the students and the AI engineer are working in different ways. Let's say self. So here we're going to say self the name, doing homework. Whereas in the AI engineer, it will be, let's say the AI engineer is trying to build a mathematical model. Building. Okay, let's rerun this to class so it can redefine. Now redefine. Now here is the interesting thing. Sometimes we do not know the AI engineer or the students we are going to call. All we know is just a person. So we can do it this way. We can define a main function called hire to work, maybe. And all we know is we need a person. But we do not know which object we are going to call. Here we're going to call the work function. Okay. Now when we call the function, we can pass the specific type of the person, which is AI or student. Okay, let's redefine this two object, because we already redefined the class, so we have to rerun this cell. Okay, now first let's pass an AI engineer over here. Sorry, I may miss a self over there. Here is the F. Here is the F. Sorry, my bad type. Now let's rerun this again. Reinitial the object. Same to the AI. And now I think this cell will going to work. See, we do not know which kind of person we are going to hire, but when we actually let it do work, AI job is assigned to the AI engineer, whereas students going to study, we can also say student over here. So Rose is doing work, rather than it's just a abstract person's behaviors, like we only say Rose's work in the original one. Now, because of the children class, it's become polymorphism, different form of the type. Okay, that's all about inheritance and polymorphism about object-oriented programming. And that's all for OOP. Bye-bye. See you next video.